When the cockatiel you fed and bonded with suddenly lunges and draws blood, it hurts physically, but the feeling of betrayal is often worse. It's a complete breakdown in the relationship you've worked so hard to build. That frustration is valid, but to fix it, we must change how we define the act. A bite isn't a sign of a bad bird or a lost bond. It's a desperate, final form of nonverbal communication. In their natural state, a cockatiel's beak is a highly sensitive tactile organ. They use it for foraging, climbing, and grooming. It didn't evolve as a weapon for combat. Today, we're going to decode the psychological triggers behind these attacks. We'll look at why traditional punishment fails and how to read the bird's somatic language so you can rebuild that trust. To find a solution, we have to look past our own social rules and examine the specific evolutionary pressures that actually govern their actions. Cockatiels are nomadic. Their baseline environment is the vast Australian scrubland, where they track rainfall and forage across massive open spaces. Because they are small prey animals, they don't stand and fight. Their hardwired primary defense against a threat is high-velocity flight. Now, compare that infinite horizon to the spatial restrictions of a cage or an enclosed room. When you restrict their environment or clip their wings, you remove that primary survival instinct. If they feel cornered and flight is impossible, they are forced to use their secondary, last resort defense, biting. But sometimes it feels like they want to bite even when they're just stepping onto my hand. That's often a misunderstanding of juvenile beaking. Fletchlings use their open beaks to test the structural stability and texture of a surface before they trust it with their weight. If a handler interprets that sensory check as an attack and jerks their hand away, the bird learns that hands are unstable and terrifying. The domestic bite is effectively a biological panic response, triggered when captivity prevents their natural instinct to simply fly away. If it's a panic response, how do we spot it before the strike? By watching for somatic indicators. A cockatiel displays a predictable sequence of physiological shifts before it resorts to a bite. On this dashboard, watch the crest. Dropping flesh against the skull signals high fear. Next, rapid pupil contraction, eye pinning, shows intense arousal. Finally, the tail feathers fan wide, a threat display to ward off intruders. You may also hear a low, snake-like hiss. This defense deters predators by imitating a reptile. When a handler ignores these clear somatic warnings and continues to advance, the bird is forced to escalate to the final strike, the open beak lunge. So a bite rarely happens out of nowhere. It only happens when we are deaf to the bird's nonverbal warnings for space. What about a bird that only ever bites in specific spots? Reaching into a confined enclosure creates a cornered prey response. We must distinguish fear from hormones.
During breeding surges, birds experience intense instincts to guard resources. This can lead to mate guarding. If a bird views one person as their mate, they will proactively attack anyone else who approaches. Then there is displaced aggression. If a bird is startled by a trigger they can't reach, they may turn and bite the nearest target, which is why shoulder perching is so risky. Sitting on a shoulder hides all those somatic signs from your view. If the bird is startled, you get a facial bite without ever seeing the warning signals. Exactly. Biting is heavily dictated by positioning and spatial pressure. It is a reaction to the environment, not an inherent character flaw. Now we look at how we accidentally make these habits permanent. Handlers often train their birds to bite through simple cause and effect. This is the drama-reward loop. The bird bites, the human yells, and the behavior is reinforced. Because parrots crave social energy, scolding is a thrilling reward. Alternatively, in negative reinforcement, a bite makes your hand retreat, removing the threat. By retreating, you prove that biting is the most effective way to manage its environment. Over time, the bird learns that somatic warnings are unnecessary. They stop the crest flattening and hissing because the bite gets the job done faster. To change the bird's behavior, the handler must overwrite their own instinctual reactions to the bite. You see a lot of advice about asserting dominance to stop this. Dominance hierarchies don't apply to these birds. Using force only validates their baseline fear that the human is a predator. Take beak flicking. The beak is a highly sensitive sensory organ. Flicking it causes physical pain, destroys trust, and usually increases defensive biting. The same goes for the earthquake method, shaking your hand to knock the bird off balance. This proves human hands are unstable and dangerous perches. In a prey animal's mind, physical force isn't a lesson. It's evidence of a threat. Punitive corrections guarantee more biting because they reinforce the bird's original fear of being handled. The goal isn't to break the bird's will. It's to change the environment so the bird never needs to bite. We start with systematic desensitization. You identify the bird's fear threshold, the exact distance before the crest flattens, and you reward calm behavior at that safe distance, slowly closing the gap on their terms. This shows target training, the most effective way to guide a bird without physical pressure. Using a neutral object like a chopstick builds a bridge. The bird chooses to interact. The second its beak taps the stick, you offer immediate positive reinforcement. You eliminate the biting by restoring the bird's autonomy and giving them the power of choice. A bite is a functional message from a bird that has run out of other ways to be heard. By learning their physical language and respecting their boundaries, you can repair the rift and build a trust-based bond that lasts.